The village of Lumina was not built, it was whispered into existence by the stars themselves. Or so the old stories went, carried on the soft breeze that drifted through the whispering veil each night. Its houses, nestled deep within the valley, had roofs of polished moonstone that caught the celestial light, turning the village into a scattered handful of glimmering pearls under the vast velvet expanse of the sky. Walls were woven from the resilient, silver-barked trees of the starwood forest, their branches still laced with tiny, bioluminescent mosses that pulsed with a gentle, sleepy light, even in the brightest day. Everything in Lumina felt ancient and alive, humming with a quiet magic. But it was at night that Lumina truly awoke. When the twin moons, Lumina and Lunara, rose, one a burnished gold and the other a cool pale silver, their light spilled over the valley, illuminating the intricate carvings on the village fountain, where star-shaped fish swam in water that tasted of cool spring and distant dreams. Above, the sky was a breathless tapestry, so dense with stars it felt as though one could reach up and gather handfuls of sparkling dust. Constellations, known and unknown, wheeled slowly overhead, their silent dance a constant comfort to the villagers. In Lumina, the stars were not just distant lights, they were neighbors, storytellers and keepers of secrets. Elara knew this better than anyone. Her hair, the color of spun moonlight, seemed to absorb and radiate a soft glow, and her eyes, the deep indigo of twilight, were always fixed on the heavens. She was 10 years old, with a heart as open and curious as the night sky itself. Every evening, after helping her mother tend the glowberry bushes that ripened into sweet, edible lights, and her father polish the moonstone tiles, Elara would climb to the highest point of their moonstone roof. There, wrapped in a blanket woven from cloud silk, she would lie on her back, watching the cosmic ballet unfold. She knew the names of all the major constellations, the Great Weaver, whose threads held the sky together, the Wandering Heart, always searching for its twin, and her personal favorite, the Star Child, a tiny, faint cluster that twinkled playfully near the horizon. But Elara didn't just always see the stars, she felt them. She could sense the subtle shifts in their glow, the gentle hum of their distant psalms, the way their light tasted on the crisp night air. To her, they were alive, breathing giants, each with a story to tell. Lately, though, something felt different. It was a faint whisper, a barely perceptible tremor in the grand symphony of the night. For the past few weeks, Elara had noticed a subtle dimming. It wasn't enough for anyone else to remark upon, not even the village elders who spent their nights observing the sky from the stargazer's tower. But Elara felt it, deep in her bones. The stars weren't as crisp, their hum was a shade softer, their light a fraction less vibrant. It was like a beloved song played just a tiny bit out of tune, only noticeable to the most attuned ear. One evening, as the heart star, the brightest jewel in Lumina's sky, rose above the crystal peaks, Elara felt a pang of unease. Its usual brilliant, pulsating light was now merely bright, its vibrant sapphire hue muted to a pale sapphire. She reached out a small hand, as if to cup its fading light, a frown creasing her brow. Her own faint inner glow, usually a bright spark, felt a little cooler, a little less joyful. The thought sent a shiver through her. If the stars were dimming, what did that mean for Lumina, a village born of starlight? What did it mean for her? She spent the next few days with a quiet worry nesting in her heart. She tried to dismiss it, telling herself it was just her imagination, or perhaps a trick of the cloud cover, but the feeling persisted. The starlight-infused water from the fountain tasted a little less vibrant, the glowberries seemed to take longer to ripen, and even the bioluminescent mosses on the starwood trees pulsed with a hint less enthusiasm. Finally, unable to keep her worry to herself any longer, Elara sought out her grandma Lyra. Lyra lived in a cozy house at the edge of the village, her roof not of polished moonstone, but of interwoven starlight willow branches that seemed to constantly weep shimmering, silvery leaves. Her home was always filled with the scent of dried herbs and ancient stories, and her eyes, though lined with age, held the same deep, knowing indigo as Elara's. Lyra was the village's oldest star weaver, a keeper of lore and guardian of the celestial tales. Elara found her grandmother sitting by the hearth, where a fire of sungems glowed with a warm, steady light, not burning, but radiating heat and a soft, golden shimmer. Lyra was carefully mending a tear in an old tapestry depicting the constellations, her nimble fingers working a needle threaded with moon silk. "Grandma Lyra?" Elara asked, her voice soft. Lyra looked up, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "Elara, my little stargazer, come sit by the warmth." She patted the cushion beside her. Elara settled down, drawing her knees up to her chin. "Grandma," she began, twisting a strand of her moonlight hair, "have you noticed anything different about the stars lately?" Lyra's smile softened further, a hint of understanding in her eyes. "Ah, so you felt it too, have you, my dear?" Elara's eyes widened. "You have. I thought maybe it was just me. They seem fainter, quieter, especially the heart star." Lyra sighed, a sound like the rustle of autumn leaves. "You have a true star heart, Elara. Only those with the deepest connection to the celestial currents would notice so subtle a shift. Yes, the starlight is indeed dimming." Elara felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. "But why? What's happening?" Lyra set down her tapestry and took Elara's small hands in her own, her touch warm and reassuring. "The stars, Elara, are more than just distant lights. They are the very threads of our world, woven into existence by the ancient star weavers at the dawn of time. Their light, their song, their magic, this is what we call the starlight. It flows through everything in Lumina, nourishes the whispering veil, and guides the paths of all living things. But if it's dimming," Elara whispered, her voice trembling. "Then the starlight weave is weakening," Lyra finished gravely. "The great tapestry that connects our world to the cosmos is fraying." She looked into the shimmering depths of the sun gem fire. Long ago, the first star weavers, beings of pure light and cosmic dust, tended to this weave. They ensured the starlight flowed strong and true. But as ages passed and their numbers dwindled, the task fell to those who carried their legacy in their hearts, like our family, Elara and others in Lumina. "You mean we're supposed to fix it?" Elara asked, a daunting thought. Lyra chuckled softly. "Not fix it entirely, little one, but tend to it, keep it strong. For generations we have done so through our rituals, our observations, our reverence. We have listened to the whispers of the stars and responded to their needs. But it has been many generations since the starlight has faded so noticeably." "What does that mean, Grandma?" "It means," Lyra said, her gaze turning serious, "that the starlight weave needs more than just tending now. It needs renewal. It needs someone to find its source, the very loom upon which it was first spun, and reawaken its ancient power." Elara's heart fluttered with a mix of fear and an exhilarating spark of possibility. "The source? Where is it?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "That, my dear, is the great mystery. The legends speak of it only as the heart of the weave, a place where the starlight pulses in its purest form. Some say it lies beyond the crystal peaks, in the celestial meadows. Others believe it is hidden within the deepest reaches of the starwood forest, guarded by ancient spirits. But how would anyone find it?" Elara asked, overwhelmed by the enormity of the task. Lyra smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "By listening, Elara, truly listening. The stars always speak if one knows how to hear their language, and you, my child, have always been their keenest listener." She reached into a small velvet pouch hanging from her belt and drew out a tiny, shimmering object. It was a fragment of crystal, no bigger than Elara's thumbnail, but within its depths, miniature stars seemed to swirl and dance. "This," Lyra explained, placing it gently in Elara's palm, "is a piece of a fallen star, retrieved by my own grandmother many years ago. It hums with the memory of its celestial journey. Hold it close. Let its faint song guide you. It will help you hear the star's whispers more clearly, especially when the path ahead is uncertain." Elara cupped the star fragment, feeling a faint warmth spread through her hand, a soft vibration that echoed deep within her. It felt like a miniature heart beating in her palm. "The first step," Lyra continued, "is to seek out the stargazer's glade. It lies at the edge of the whispering woods where the ancient star weavers often communed with the heavens. The starlight gathers there, thicker than anywhere else. Go there tonight, Elara. Take your star fragment, and simply listen." Elara felt a thrill of adventure ripple through her. The whispering woods, while beautiful, was a place of deep shadows and ancient secrets, rarely ventured into by children. But the thought of helping the stars, of rekindling their fading light, filled her with a courage she hadn't known she possessed. "I will, Grandma," she promised, her voice firm. As twilight deepened, casting long purple shadows across Lumina, Elara prepared for her journey. She packed a small satchel with a glowberry cake for sustenance, a flask of starlight water, and her cloud silk blanket. The star fragment, tucked safely into a small pouch around her neck, pulsed with a gentle warmth against her skin. Her parents were already asleep, their moonstone roof glowing softly. Elara slipped out of her home, her soft footsteps barely disturbing the dew-kissed moon moss that carpeted the village paths. The air was cool and sweet, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine and damp earth. Above, the stars, though still dimmer than she remembered, glittered with a faint, hopeful shimmer. The heart star called to her, a soft, insistent thrum that resonated with the star fragment around her neck. She followed the winding path that led out of Lumina, past the last of the glowberry bushes and the sleeping starwood trees. Soon, the familiar, comforting lights of the village receded, replaced by the deeper shadows of the whispering woods. The trees here were taller, their silver bark giving way to darker, ancient wood, their branches intertwined overhead like gnarled protective fingers. The air grew cooler, carrying the rustle of unseen creatures and the soft sigh of the wind through the leaves. The whispers in the woods were real, not just a name. They were the gentle murmurs of the ancient trees, the faint echoes of forgotten spells, and the secret conversations of the forest spirits. Elara clutched her star fragment, its warmth a steady anchor against the encroaching mystery. She kept her eyes on the sky, trying to discern the direction of the stargazer's glade, though Lyra had only given her vague directions. Just as a flicker of doubt began to creep into her heart, a tiny iridescent light caught her eye. It hovered near a gnarled root, pulsing with a soft green glow. It was a Lumina sprite, a tiny, insect-like creature with delicate, translucent wings that shimmered like stained glass. Lumina sprites were shy creatures, rarely seen by humans, and always drawn to pockets of strong magic. This one, however, seemed different. It bobbed and weaved in the air, its glow intensifying as Elara approached. Then, with a soft, almost imperceptible aeeping, it began to drift slowly deeper into the woods, looking back at Elara as if urging her to follow. "Are you showing me the way?" Elara whispered, her voice barely audible. The sprite pulsed again, then resumed its gentle flight. Elara, her curiosity outweighing her apprehension, followed. The sprite led her off the main path, deeper into a denser part of the woods. The trees grew closer together, their branches forming a leafy canopy that filtered the moonlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Strange luminous fungi dotted the undergrowth, casting soft ethereal glows of purple and blue. After what felt like a long journey, the trees suddenly thinned, and Elara found herself standing at the edge of a clearing. It was the Stargazer's glade. The glade was a circular space, open to the sky, surrounded by a ring of ancient, towering starwood trees. In the center, a cluster of massive moss-covered stones stood arranged in a perfect circle, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of celestial observation. But what truly took Elara's breath away was the light. Here, the starlight felt stronger, denser, as if the heavens had poured their essence directly into this sacred space. The air shimmered with invisible currents of magic. The moss on the stones glowed with an intensified luminescence, and the very ground beneath her feet seemed to hum. Above, the stars were still muted, but in the glade, their light felt amplified, almost tangible. She could almost taste the stardust on her tongue. The Lumina sprite, having led her to the glade, now hovered near the central stones, its green glow pulsing rhythmically, as if in silent communication with the ancient magic of the place. Elara walked to the center of the glade, her heart thrumming with excitement and awe. She touched one of the smooth, cool stones. It vibrated faintly beneath her fingers, resonating with the fragment around her neck. She lay down on the largest stone, pulling her cloud silk blanket around her, and looked up at the sky. Here, the stars felt closer, their whispers clearer. She closed her eyes, clutching the star fragment. She focused, emptying her mind, letting the sounds of the night wash over her. The rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of a moon owl, the soft ping of the Lumina sprite. And then, beneath it all, she began to hear it. a faint, ethereal song. It wasn't a melody of notes, but a symphony of light and energy, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the cosmos. It was the Starlight, singing its ancient song. But as she listened more closely, she realized the song was strained, its harmonious chords interspersed with faint, discordant notes, like a beautiful instrument struggling to play. The star fragment in her hand pulsed faster, warmer. Elara focused her inner vision, letting the starlight wash over her. And then, a new kind of whisper entered her mind, not a sound, but a flicker of an image. A cascade of light, like a river of stars, flowing from the heart star, down towards the world. But now, that river was not flowing freely. It was blocked, partially obscured by shadows. Not dark shadows, but more like a dense, shimmering mist, absorbing the light. The image faded, leaving Elara breathless. The starlight wasn't just fading, something was absorbing it. And the heart star, the guiding light of Lumina, was the first affected. She opened her eyes, gazing up at the heart star, now visible directly overhead. Its light was still muted, but now, Elara saw something else. A faint, almost invisible wisp of shimmering gray, like a celestial veil, seemed to cling to its edges. It was beautiful, yet insidious. The Lumina sprite landed gently on her chest, its green glow illuminating the star fragment, which now pulsed with an urgent, steady rhythm. Elara knew with a certainty that settled deep in her soul that her journey to rekindle the starlight weave had truly begun. The glade was not the end, but the very first step. She had seen the problem, and now she needed to find the source of the shimmering mist, and somehow clear the path for the heart star's light to flow freely once more. But how? And where would she begin to look for such a thing? The vastness of the task loomed, but so did the quiet, determined hope in her star-beating heart. The quiet, determined hope in her star-beating heart was a fragile but persistent ember against the vastness of the task. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the cool, damp air of the glade wash over her. How? New? And where? Questions echoed, but this time, instead of panic, she sought an answer not from her mind, but from the deep, resonant connection she felt to the starlight weave itself. She reached out, an invisible tendril of her consciousness unfurling, seeking a whisper, a pull, any direction from the silent stars above. And then, faintly, it came. Not a sound, nor a visible sign, but a subtle shifting in the air. A vibration like a distant, muted hum thrummed through the very ground beneath her bare feet. It wasn't the general oppressive presence of the shimmering mist, but a specific, almost melodic undertone within it, a thread of disharmony that seemed to ripple from a particular direction. It was like a single, off-key note in a vast, silent symphony. Lyra opened her eyes. The world still appeared soft and blurred, but now a faint, almost imperceptible silver-blue sheen seemed to coalesce and drift, not randomly, but with a subtle current, towards the western edge of the glade. It was the mist, yes, but imbued with a strange, compelling luminescence she hadn't noticed before, as if the problem itself was trying to point the way. With a deep breath, Lyra began to walk. Her steps were slow at first, uncertain, but with each stride, the silver-blue current grew a little stronger, the hum a little clearer. The ancient trees of the glade, usually vibrant with their own internal light, seemed to lean in, their branches rustling with a soft, knowing sigh as she passed. The ground felt softer, the mosses underfoot springier, as if the glade itself was encouraging her onward, whispering secrets through its roots. She walked deeper into the glade's periphery, where the ancient trees grew even taller and more gnarled, their boughs heavy with centuries of wisdom. The air here was cooler, imbued with the scent of damp earth and distant, decaying leaves. The silver-blue shimmer intensified, leading her to a clearing Lyra had never noticed before, even though she had spent countless hours exploring the glade. It was hidden, tucked away behind a curtain of weeping vines and ancient shimmering ferns. In the center of this secret clearing stood a tree unlike any she had ever seen. It was a willow, but not of the familiar, gentle kind. This willow was colossal, its trunk wider than 3 elephants side by side, its bark a mosaic of deep greens and grays, etched with patterns that seemed to shift and swirl like constellations. Its branches didn't weep. They reached thick and powerful, towards the sky, their leaves a vibrant glowing emerald, each one edged with a faint pulsing gold. and from its very heart, a soft, warm light emanated, pushing back the encroaching silver-blue mist, creating a small, clear bubble of radiant air around it. As Lyra stepped into the clearing, the air around the willow tree shimmered, and the light from its heart pulsed. From a knot in its vast trunk, two luminous eyes, the color of twilight, and filled with ancient starlight, slowly opened. They regarded Lyra with a gaze that held millennia of quiet observation. A star child at last, a voice rumbled, deep and resonant, not from the tree's branches but from the very ground beneath her feet, vibrating through the roots, rising up through the earth. I have waited long for a heart star to guide the way. Lyra gasped, her own star-beating heart quickening. You can speak, she whispered, awestruck. I am Old Willow-Wisp, the tree replied, its leaves rustling like 1,000 whispered secrets. Guardian of the glade's truest heart and memory keeper of the starlight weave. I felt your coming, Lyra. Felt the stir of the heart star within you, a promise of light in these darkening times. He paused, and a sigh, like the wind through an ancient forest, rippled through his massive form. The shimmering mist you see, the ye ethereal shrouding, as it is known, is not merely a cloud child. It is a slow, insidious drain. A disruption. It siphons the celestial energy of the starlight weave, preventing the heart star's pure light from reaching our world, dimming the magic that sustains all life. Lyra's gaze went to the obscured sky. But where does it come from? What is causing it? Old Willow-Wisp's luminous eyes seemed to deepen, reflecting a sorrow that spanned ages. The shroud originates from the Whisperwind Peaks, a mountain range far to the north, beyond the Glimmerwood Grove and the sunken spires. Within those peaks lies a place called the Heartstone Hollow. It was once a sacred nexus, where the starlight weave was anchored to our world, a place of profound balance and radiant energy. He continued, his voice softer, laced with concern. But something has gone awry there. A disturbance, subtle at first, has grown over the centuries, twisting the pure energy of the weave, converting it into this dulling mist. It is like a wound in the very fabric of our reality, slowly bleeding away the light. I need to go there, don't I? Lyra said, the words feeling inevitable, a truth born not of choice, but destiny. Indeed you must, Old Willow-Wisp confirmed. Only a star child, with a heart connected to the heart star itself, can pass through the deepening layers of the shroud and approach the source. The path will be perilous, Lyra. The magic of the world is growing thin, and creatures once gentle may be confused, even wary. But you carry the light within you, a beacon to guide your way. As he spoke, a single glowing emerald leaf, edged with pulsating gold, detached itself from Old Willow-Wisp's vast canopy. It drifted down, slow and graceful, until it came to rest gently in Lyra's outstretched palm. This leaf, the ancient tree explained, is a fragment of my own life force, imbued with the glade's ancient magic. It will not clear the shroud, but it will help you perceive the true path beneath its veil. Hold it close. Its light will guide you when the way seems lost, and its warmth will comfort you when the chill of the shroud grows too deep. Lyra clutched the leaf, feeling its gentle pulse against her skin. It was warm, alive, a miniature star in her hand. Thank you, Old Willow-Wisp, she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude and the weight of her new understanding. Go now, star child, the willow rumbled. Follow the silver-blue current of the shroud itself. It leads to its source. But remember, Lyra, the journey is not just about clearing the path for the Heartstar's light. It is about remembering your light. Trust your heart. Trust the starlight weave that beats within you. With a final deep sigh that rustled every leaf on his colossal form, Old Willow-Wisp's luminous eyes slowly closed. The radiant bubble of clear air around him seemed to shrink slightly, the silver-blue mist pressing in, though never quite reaching the ancient tree itself. Lyra turned, the emerald leaf glowing softly in her hand, a tiny beacon against the encroaching gloom. The silver-blue current of the mist seemed clearer now, a subtle river flowing through the air, beckoning her westward. She took one last look at the ancient willow, its silent, colossal form a promise of enduring magic, then stepped out of the hidden clearing and into the wider world, a world growing dim under the oppressive weight of the ethereal shroud. Her journey truly began at the glade's western edge. The familiar, comforting embrace of the ancient trees slowly gave way to a landscape subtly altered. The colors seemed muted, the air heavier, and the scent of the forest, usually so vibrant, was now tinged with a faint metallic tang. She followed the invisible current of the mist, her emerald leaf pulsing gently, mirroring the quiet determination in her heart. The first stretch of her journey led her through the Glimmerwood Grove, a place renowned for its bioluminescent flora and fauna. Usually, this forest was a spectacle of soft, shifting lights, mushrooms that pulsed with violet hues, ferns that glowed with a delicate green tracery, and insects that danced like scattered gemstones in the twilight. But as Lyra entered, she found the Glimmerwood Grove subdued. The glowing mushrooms still pulsed, but their light was dimmer, their colors faded, as if seen through frosted glass. The fern's tracery was fainter, struggling to maintain its luminescence. The air was thick with the ethereal shroud, transforming the usual magical twilight into a deeper, more profound gloom. The silver-blue current was strongest here, weaving through the branches, seeming to draw the very light from the glowing plants. Lyra felt a pang of sadness. This was the impact of the shroud, visible and tangible. The world was slowly losing its magic, its vibrancy. She clutched the willow-wisp leaf, its warmth a small comfort against the growing chill of the air. As she moved deeper into the Glimmerwood, the silence grew heavy. The usual chirps and rustles of forest creatures were absent. Then, she heard a faint whimpering. It sounded small, lost. Following the sound, she found a creature huddled beneath a giant, dully glowing toadstool. It was a Lumina hare, a normally bright, fluffy creature, whose fur shimmered with soft, iridescent blues and greens. But this one's fur was dull, almost gray, and its usually bright, curious eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the muted glow of the toadstool. It trembled, its tiny body shivering. Lyra knelt slowly, extending a hand, the emerald leaf glowing softly between her fingers. "Hello there," she whispered, her voice gentle. "Are you lost?" The Lumina hare flinched, pressing itself further into the toadstool's roots. It seemed disoriented, its senses overwhelmed by the dense mist. It wasn't hostile, just utterly terrified. Lyra realized the ethereal shroud wasn't just dimming the light, it was confusing the creatures, muddling their natural magical instincts. She remembered old Willow-Wisp's words, "Trust the starlight weave that beats within you." She closed her eyes, focusing on the gentle pulse in her chest, the connection to the heartstar. Then, very slowly, she extended her hand again, this time focusing not just on the leaf, but on a soft, reassuring hum that seemed to emanate from her own being. It was a warmth, a quiet melody without sound, a resonance of pure, untainted light. As the gentle hum radiated from her, the emerald leaf in her hand brightened, its golden edge pulsing more strongly. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer began to emanate from Lyra herself, a soft, starlit glow that pushed back the silver-blue mist in a small, personal bubble around her. The Lumina hare, sensing this new, comforting energy, slowly uncurled. Its dull fur seemed to catch a tiny spark of light, and its eyes, though still wary, held a flicker of curiosity. Lyra continued to hum, a wordless lullaby, and very carefully she reached out and gently stroked the Lumina hare's head. The creature leaned into her touch, a small sigh escaping its tiny chest. As she stroked its fur, Lyra felt a faint thrumming beneath her fingers, a resonance of the creature's own magic, struggling to reassert itself. A tiny patch of its fur, where her hand rested, seemed to regain a faint shimmer of iridescent blue. "You're all right now," Lyra murmured, the words seeming to carry the weight of the Starlight Weave's reassurance. She knew she couldn't clear the shroud from the entire Glimmerwood, but she could offer a moment of clarity, a touch of hope. She watched as the Lumina hare, calmer now, blinked its eyes, its gaze seeming to clear. It looked at her, then at the surrounding, muted Glimmerwood. And then, with a sudden hop, it darted away, its faint shimmer now a little stronger, disappearing into the mist, but with a renewed sense of direction. Lyra smiled, a quiet joy blooming in her heart. She had helped, even if just a little. Her connection to the Starlight Weave wasn't just about sensing, it was about sharing its light, its harmony. This was her first real use of her Starchild abilities, and it filled her with a new resolve. She continued her journey through the Glimmerwood Grove. The silver-blue current of the ethereal shroud grew steadily denser. The glowing plants became fewer and farther between, their light almost entirely extinguished. The ground grew rougher, and the air colder, carrying a faint metallic tang that was almost bitter. The whispers of the forest became less a soft rustle and more a low, mournful sigh. After what felt like days, though the unchanging gloom made it impossible to tell, Lyra emerged from the Glimmerwood Grove. Before her, stretching into the oppressive sky, loomed the Whisperwind Peaks. They were magnificent and terrifying. Jagged ancient mountains, their peaks shrouded not just in the silver-blue mist, but in a deeper, almost opaque haze that seemed to cling to their very slopes. The rock faces were dark, veined with what looked like frozen lightning, and the valleys between them were deep, shadowed chasms. The wind here was a constant, mournful wail, echoing through the crags, carrying with it a chill that sank deep into Lyra's bones. The emerald leaf in her hand pulsed more rapidly now, its warmth a tangible comfort against the biting cold. The silver-blue current of the shroud was a raging river here, swirling and eddying around the peaks, clearly funneling into their heart. The sense of disharmony was overwhelming, a discordant thrum that grated on her very soul. As she began her ascent into the foothills, the landscape grew even more stark. Trees were gnarled and twisted, their branches bare, clinging precariously to the rocky slopes. No longer did she hear the faint sounds of forest creatures, only the wind's cry and the crunch of loose stones beneath her boots. The ground was treacherous, covered in scree and sharp crystalline shards that glinted dully in the omnipresent gloom. She pressed on, fueled by old Will-O-Wisp's words and the memory of the Lumina hair. Her star-child sense of the true path beneath the shroud was working overtime here, guiding her through seemingly impassable sections, showing her faint, almost invisible trails that wound around treacherous cliffs and yawning ravines. She learned to trust the faint shimmer she could discern, the subtle energy signature of the path, even when her eyes saw only mist and rock. High above her, a vast, dark shape detached itself from the swirling mist. It circled slowly, its wings immense, catching what little ambient light there was. It was a whisper eagle, a creature of legend, said to guard the highest peaks. Unlike the Lumina hare, this creature wasn't small and lost. It was powerful, majestic, yet also seemed to carry a burden of immense sorrow. Its cry, when it came, was a piercing shriek that echoed off the peaks, a sound of deep anguish. The whisper eagle descended, circling closer and closer, its sharp, intelligent eyes fixing on Lyra. It was huge, easily twice her height, its feathers a mosaic of deep grays and blues, dusted with a faint, ghostly luminescence that struggled against the shroud. It landed on a jagged outcrop not far from her, its talons gripping the rock with immense strength. "Who dares trespass the Whisperwind Peaks?" Its voice boomed, not from its beak, but from a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from its very presence, shaking the air around her. The Heartstone Hollow is not for the living. The shroud protects it from those who would disturb its sorrow. Lyra stood firm, clutching the emerald leaf. She looked into the Whisper Eagle's eyes, seeing not malice, but a profound weariness. "I am Lyra, a star-child," she announced, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "I have come to rekindle the starlight weave, to clear the ethereal shroud that dims our world. Old Will-O-Wisp sent me. I seek the Heartstone Hollow to understand what has gone awry." The Whisper Eagle tilted its massive head, its eyes narrowing. A star-child? They spoke of such a one long ago. A prophecy of light returned. But the Heartstone Hollow holds only shadows now. It feeds on the light, twists it into this suffocating mist. "I know it is difficult," Lyra replied. "But the world is fading. The Glimmerwood is dimming. Creatures are losing their way. If the shroud continues, soon there will be no light left at all." A deep sigh, like the wind through 1,000 mountain passes, escaped the Whisper Eagle. The Heartstone Hollow draws its power from the celestial energies, yes, but it is also connected to the echoes of forgotten memories, of ancient agreements broken, of lost harmony. The shroud is a manifestation of that discord. To clear it, you must understand its song of sorrow. To clear it, you must understand its song of sorrow. The Whisper Eagle unfurled one immense wing, pointing a single, powerful feather towards a particularly treacherous-looking pass high above. Beyond that pass, through the crag of silent echoes, lies the entrance to the hollow. But beware, Starchild. The air within is thick with the burden of what was lost. Only one who can hear the whispers of the past, and soothe the echoes of discord, can hope to approach the Heartstone itself. With a powerful beat of its wings, the Whisper Eagle launched itself back into the air, circling once more, its mournful cry fading into the relentless wail of the wind. Its words hung in the chilling air. Hear the whispers of the past, soothe the echoes of discord. Lyra looked at the pass, a jagged maw in the mountain's face, wreathed in the densest, most suffocating silver-blue mist she had yet encountered. The emerald leaf in her hand pulsed wildly now, its light almost frantic. The air was heavy, not just with cold, but with a palpable sense of ancient grief and confusion. She could feel the Heartstone hollow drawing closer, a powerful, discordant magnet pulling at the starlight weave within her. The true source of the ethereal shroud, the wound in the world, lay just beyond. The crag of silent echoes awaited. Wantian. She had to learn to hear the whispers, to understand the sorrow, and find a way to mend the broken song of the Heartstone. Her star-beating heart pulsed with a fierce, unwavering light, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The air grew heavy, a palpable stillness that pressed in on Lyra from all sides as she approached the crag of silent echoes. It wasn't the hush of a quiet forest, but the deep, resonant silence of something vast and ancient holding its breath. Before her, the mountains themselves seemed to twist and coil, their jagged peaks clawing at a sky that was perpetually bruised with twilight hues, even under the sun's distant glow. The rock formations were unlike anything she had ever seen, not merely grey stone but veined with colors that shimmered and shifted, deep indigo, muted violet, and streaks of a dull, sorrowful silver. It was as if the very mountains wept, their tears solidified into strange, glittering minerals. And then, there was the shroud. Here, at its heart, the ethereal shroud was no longer a distant haze, but a tangible presence. It didn't just obscure, it absorbed. Light seemed to dim as it touched the crag, sounds muffled, and even her own thoughts felt muted, as if passing through layers of velvet. The shimmering curtain of mist, once a distant threat, now clung to the very slopes, swirling in slow, mournful eddies around the base of the mountains. It pulsed with the same discordant energy she felt from the Heartstone hollow, a low, thrumming vibration that resonated deep within her bones, a counter-melody to her own star-beating heart. Lyra dismounted from her celestial steed, its luminous hooves making no sound on the strange, silvery dust that coated the ground. The creature, usually so vibrant, lowered its head, its starlight mane dimming slightly, sensing the immense sorrow that permeated this place. She stroked its worn neck, a silent promise that she would return. Then, with a deep breath, Lyra stepped forward, her every sense straining, her starlight weave reaching out like 1,000 delicate tendrils, seeking connection, seeking understanding. The path into the crag was not a path at all, but a winding fissure in the mountain face, growing wider and deeper as she ventured inward. The air grew colder, yet it hummed with a strange, latent energy. The rocks within the fissure were polished smooth, as if countless ages of wind and water had scoured them, or perhaps something else entirely. She noticed faint, almost invisible carvings on the walls, intricate symbols that pulsed with a faint inner light, like captured constellations. They were not runes of warning or guidance, but seemed to be fragments of a forgotten language, echoes of a vast, complex song. As she delved deeper, the sound of her own footsteps seemed to vanish, absorbed by the overwhelming silence. This was the crag of silent echoes, she realized, and the silence was not an absence of sound, but an accumulation of all the sounds that had ever been, now muted, trapped, unable to escape. It was the weight of unuttered words, unsung melodies, and unwept tears. Finally, the fissure opened into a cavern of colossal proportions. This was the Heartstone Hollow. It was not a single chamber but a vast cathedral-like space, its ceiling lost in the shimmering depths of the ethereal shroud that gathered thickly overhead, like a storm cloud of despair. Great crystalline formations, taller than ancient trees, jutted from the floor and walls, glowing with an internal, fractured light. They were not uniform, but chaotic, jagged and fractured, their facets reflecting the muted light in 1,000 broken shards. Each crystal seemed to pulse with a faint, unique hue, some a dull ruby, others a bruised sapphire, many a sickly, pale emerald. But interwoven through them all was the same discordant hum, a low grating frequency that made the very air vibrate. At the very heart of the hollow, where the largest of the crystal formations converged, was the Heartstone itself. It wasn't a single perfect gem, as she had perhaps imagined, but a colossal matrix of interlocking crystals, fused together in a chaotic organic sprawl. It pulsed with a dull, erratic beat, like a dying heart, its light struggling to break through the encasing sorrow. Within its depths, Lyra could perceive swirling currents of raw aether, but they were not flowing freely. They were tangled, knotted, and choked. This was the source of the wound, the epicenter of the broken song. As Lyra drew closer, her starlight weave flared, reaching out instinctively. She felt the ancient grief more acutely here, a sorrow so profound it felt like a physical weight. But amidst the grief, there was also something else, a faint, persistent whisper. It wasn't a voice, not exactly, but a resonance, a memory imprinted upon the very stone. She closed her eyes, letting her starlight weave unfurl further, connecting with the Heartstone's fractured energy. Visions flickered behind her eyelids, fleeting images of a vibrant living world, bathed in pure golden light, a world where the aether flowed freely, singing a joyous, harmonious chorus. Then a sudden blinding flash not of light, but of absence. A deafening silence that ripped through the cosmic fabric. And after that, the slow, agonizing descent into discord, the fracturing of light, the birth of the shroud. A tremor ran through the ground, and Lyra's eyes snapped open. From behind one of the colossal crystal formations a figure emerged. It was neither flesh nor spirit in the way she understood them, but something in between. Composed of the very minerals of the Heartstone hollow, it was a being of living rock and concentrated ether, its form shifting and reforming like solidified smoke. Its eyes, twin pools of deep, unblinking sapphire, held an ancient weariness that spoke of untold ages. "You feel it, don't you, little Starheart?" the creature rumbled, its voice like the grinding of tectonic plates, yet surprisingly gentle. The burden of the world's undone melody. Lyra, though startled, felt no fear. There was only profound sadness emanating from this being. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice a soft counterpoint to his resonance. "I am Kale," the being replied, a sigh escaping his rocky form that stirred the dust on the cavern floor. "A fragment, a memory. A guardian perhaps, though I have failed in my guardianship for longer than stars burn." He gestured with a crystalline hand towards the vast, broken Heartstone. "This place, it breathes, yet it does not live. It sings, yet its song is a dirge." "I came to understand the sorrow," Lyra said, her gaze fixed on the Heartstone. "To mend the broken song." Kale regarded her with those deep, sapphire eyes. "Many have come before you, drawn by the echo of its pain. None have understood, none have reached the heart of the matter." He moved closer, his form shimmering with subtle shifts of color. "The Heartstone is not merely a source of power, child. It is the very pulse of this realm, the conductor of the ethereal symphony that binds all life, all magic, all existence. Its song is the fundamental harmony of being." He extended a hand, and a ripple of pure untainted ether flowed from his palm, momentarily illuminating the fractured crystals around them with a vibrant, pure light. Once, it sang a song of perfect balance, of joyous creation. Every stream, every tree, every creature, every thought carried a note within that grand cosmic melody. The ethereal shroud was unknown then, for either flowed freely, pure and vibrant, a river of life and magic. Kale paused, his gaze growing distant, lost in ancient memory. But then, the great discord. It was not a battle, not a war, not a single calamitous event that could be named and understood. It was a shattering, a deliberate malicious unraveling of the very threads of existence. A force, driven by envy of the Heartstone's perfect harmony, sought to silence its song forever. Lyra felt a chill deeper than the cavern's cold. Who would do such a thing, and why? Kale shook his head, his rocky features twisting with a grief that resonated with the Heartstone's own. The who is a name, lost to the earliest ages, whispered only in the deepest nightmares of the world. A being of pure dissonance born from the shadows between realities. Its desire was not to conquer, but to unmake, to replace harmony with chaos, and light with oblivion. It sought to inject its own twisted, dissonant note into the Heartstone's core, to corrupt the very source of all creation. He pointed a shimmering finger towards a particularly jagged dark crystal embedded deep within the Heartstone matrix, pulsing with a sickly greenish light that seemed to actively absorb the surrounding ether. "That is the point of entry," Not a physical wound, but a spiritual one. The Heartstone, in its infinite wisdom and compassion, could not allow its core to be fully corrupted. It chose to shatter itself, to fracture its own song, rather than allow the discord to consume all. It sacrificed its perfect harmony to prevent total annihilation. Lyra gasped, her star-beating heart aching with profound empathy. It broke itself to save everything? Indeed, Kale confirmed, his voice heavy. But the act of shattering left a void, a resonant echo of that deliberate dissonance. The ethereal shroud you see is but the visible manifestation of that broken harmony, the static that fills the silence where the true song once played. It is the world crying out, its melody fractured, unable to fully form. He looked at Lyra, his sapphire eyes piercing. Your starlight weave. It is a rare gift, born from the lingering echoes of the true song. A fragment of the primordial harmony that still exists in the purest hearts. You carry the memory of what I was. But how can I mend it? Wow, Lyra asked, her voice barely a whisper. How can I retune something so ancient, so fundamentally broken? The Heartstone cannot be fixed in the way a broken object can be mended, Kale explained. Its physical form, while fractured, is merely an expression of its spiritual state. To mend the song, you must reawaken the original melody within it. You must find the missing notes that were scattered when it shattered, and weave them back into its core. Missing notes. Lyra echoed, confused. When the Heartstone fractured, it didn't just break apart. It sent out fragments of its pure original song into the world, like seeds cast upon the wind, Kale elaborated. These fragments are not physical objects, but concentrated resonances, echoes of its perfect ethereal harmony. Kale extended his hand, and a shimmering ethereal projection formed in the air above his palm. It was a map, not of land, but of energy currents, of hidden ley lines, and scattered points of light. The Heartstone Hollow is not merely a chamber. It is a resonant space, designed to amplify and distort these echoes. The crag itself is a vast instrument, and each crystal here holds a fragment of the Heartstone's memory, a distorted note of its past song. To begin, you must attune yourself to the crag's sorrow, Kale instructed. Go to the obsidian tears, the chamber of grief. It is where the Heartstone's deepest pain solidified, where the echoes of its sacrifice resonate most strongly. There, you will find the first memory crystal, a solidified fragment of its initial harmony, before the great discord. He pointed to a dark winding tunnel leading off from the main chamber. Lyra nodded, her resolve hardening. The task ahead was immense, but for the first time, she had a direction, a purpose beyond simply understanding. She had a way to Agati. Be warned, little star heart, Kale cautioned, his voice resonating with an ancient weight. The path will not be easy. The shroud will try to confuse you, to fill your heart with its own despair. The deeper you delve, the stronger the dissonance will become. But your starlight weave is your guide. It is the light of the original song, inextinguishable even in the deepest shadows. Even in the deepest shadows. Lyra took another deep breath, letting the silent echoes of the crag wash over her. She could feel the Heartstone's broken rhythm, a painful thrumming in her chest, but now, she also felt a faint hopeful counterpulse from within herself, a tiny spark of the original harmony. She knew this was not merely a journey of physical exploration, but one of profound empathy and connection. She had to learn to feel the Heartstone's suffering, to understand its sacrifice, and through that understanding, find the strength to begin its healing. With a final determined glance at the magnificent, sorrowful Heartstone, Lyra turned and walked towards the dark tunnel Kale had indicated. The air grew heavier still, the oppressive silence closing in. But within her, the starlight weave pulsed with a fierce, unwavering light, ready to face the chamber of obsidian tears and the memories of ancient grief that awaited her. She was ready to begin weaving the broken song back together, one silent echo at a time. The path stretched long before her, a journey not just into the depths of the earth but into the very heart of the world's sorrow, and perhaps its eventual healing. The massive obsidian gates, veined with what looked like frozen tears, groaned open, not with a sound of stone on stone, but with a sigh that seemed to draw the very breath from the air. Before Elara, the chamber of obsidian tears lay revealed. It was not a grand cavern, nor an opulent hall, but a vast, silent space that swallowed light and sound alike. The walls, floor, and ceiling were composed entirely of the same dark glassy stone, polished to a mirror-like sheen that reflected nothing but the faint, shimmering aura of Ilara's starlight weave. Thousands, perhaps millions, of individual tears dotted the obsidian surfaces. They were not all the same size. Some were mere droplets, others the size of her fist, and a few, at the chamber's heart, pulsed with a dim internal glow, as large as small boulders. Each tear was a perfect frozen drop, clear, yet dark, holding within its depths a swirling nebula of trapped emotion. Ilara could feel them, a silent chorus of ancient grief, a cacophony of sorrow that resonated not in her ears, but in the deepest parts of her spirit. It was the broken song, not as a sound, but as an overwhelming feeling of absence, a gaping wound in the world's very soul. The air was heavy, thick with the weight of forgotten despair, yet strangely still. There was no wind, no dust, no echo. Only the profound, aching silence. Ilara took a tentative step onto the obsidian floor. It felt cool, smooth, and utterly devoid of life. Her starlight weave, usually a gentle hum within her, now flared with a fierce protective brilliance, its silver-blue threads reaching out, testing the oppressive atmosphere. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the starlight weave expand, becoming an ethereal shield around her. Within its shimmering embrace, the overwhelming tide of grief softened, becoming discernible currents rather than a crushing wave. She could now perceive individual echoes, a whisper of longing, a sigh of loss, a faint tremor of regret. These were the fragments of the broken song, the melodies shattered by a primordial sorrow so vast, it had silenced the world for ages. Opening her eyes, Ilara looked at the nearest obsidian tear, a small, perfect droplet embedded in the wall. She extended a hand, the starlight weave flowing from her fingertips like liquid starlight. As her light touched the tear, a faint image flickered within its depths, a towering, ancient tree, its leaves shimmering like 1,000 tiny suns, now withered and gray. A single, silent sob seemed to emanate from the tear, a memory of a time before the great withering, before the first note of the world's song had faltered. This was it. Her task was not to simply sing a new song, but to mend the old one, thread by broken thread. She needed to embrace each echo of grief, to acknowledge the sorrow it held, and then with the gentle light of the starlight weave to transform it, not into joy, for that would be to deny the pain, but into a quiet understanding, a peaceful remembrance. Ilara began her work. She moved slowly through the chamber, her bare feet making no sound on the obsidian floor. She approached each tear, big or small, and let her starlight weave flow into it. It was like reaching into a pool of icy, bitter water. Each tear held a different memory, a different facet of the world's ancient suffering, the loss of a vibrant forest, the fading of a luminous river, the silent departure of a beloved star creature, the unfulfilled promise of a dawn that never fully broke. As she immersed herself in each memory, the starlight weave acted as a filter, allowing her to feel the emotion without being consumed by it. She didn't try to erase the grief. Instead, she listened. She listened to the silent screams, the lingering whispers of despair, the heavy sighs of resignation. And as she listened, she began to hum. It was a soft, wordless melody, born from the deep well of compassion within her, a lullaby of acceptance and gentle understanding. With each hum, with each thread of starlight she wove into the obsidian tear, a subtle change occurred. The trapped, swirling darkness within the tear began to soften, to diffuse. The image within might shift from despair to a serene, if melancholic, remembrance. The tear itself didn't vanish, but its glassy, cold surface seemed to warm, taking on a faint, internal luminescence, like a pearl holding moonlight. It was no longer an obsidian tear, but a memory orb, holding the past not as a burden, but as a cherished, if sorrowful part of history. Days, or perhaps weeks, blurred into one timeless continuum within the chamber. The starlight weave sustained her, nourishing her spirit, but the emotional weight of her task was immense. She felt the echo of every lost creature, every shattered dream, every silenced melody. Sometimes, the grief was so profound, so ancient, that her own spirit wavered, and the starlight weave dimmed momentarily. During those times she would curl up on the cold obsidian, drawing the starlight weave close, letting its gentle pulse remind her of the hope she carried. She would rest, allowing the light within her to replenish, before rising again to continue her silent, sacred work. As more and more memory orbs began to glow softly around her, the profound silence of the chamber began to shift. It was not a return to sound, not yet, but a subtle resonance, a gentle hum that permeated the air, born from the collective, transformed echoes. It was the first tentative breath of the mended song. Elara moved deeper into the chamber, towards the cluster of larger tears at its heart. These were the most formidable, the oldest and deepest wounds. One tear, larger than any other, pulsed with a dark, almost angry light, a maelstrom of raw, untransformed sorrow. As she approached it, the transformed memory orbs around her seemed to dim slightly, as if recoiling from its potent despair. This was the source, she realized. This was the heart of the world's primordial grief, the echo of the event that had first broken the song. As she reached out with the starlight weave, a vision flooded her mind, not of an image, but a pure, overwhelming feeling of severance. She saw, or rather, I felt, the world as a vibrant, singing entity, its very essence a symphony of light and sound. And then a sudden, inexplicable rupture. A tear, not in the fabric of space, but in the weave of existence itself. It was the moment the world's heart had been broken, the instant its song had shattered, leaving only silence and the echoes of sorrow. The raw power of this grief threatened to extinguish her starlight weave. It was a grief so profound it felt like a black hole, drawing all light and hope into itself. For a moment, Elara felt herself falter. Doubt, cold and sharp, pierced through her protective light. Can one small being, with one small light, truly mend a wound so ancient, so vast? No. But then she remembered the gentle hum of the transformed memory orbs around her, the quiet understanding she had woven into each one. She remembered the purpose of the starlight weave, not to conquer, but to embrace, not to destroy, but to transform. She leaned her forehead against the vast pulsing tear, letting the full force of its sorrow wash over her. She didn't resist. She let the despair, the anger, the profound sense of loss flow through her, not as a poison, but as a river seeking an outlet. And as it flowed, she poured the purest essence of her starlight weave into it, unconditional compassion, gentle remembrance, and the unwavering belief in healing. She did not hum this time. Instead, she began to sing. It was not a song of words, but a melody of pure light and feeling, drawn from the deepest, most ancient part of her own being. It was the song of a star being born, the quiet lullaby of a mother cradling her child, the silent joy of a seed pushing through the earth towards the sun. It was the song of enduring life, of resilience, of the quiet strength found in acknowledging pain and choosing to move forward with hope. As her song flowed into the heart of the world's grief, the vast obsidian tear began to tremble. The dark angry light within it softened, then brightened, swirling with iridescent colors, deep blues, soft purples, radiant silvers. The feeling of severance began to recede, replaced by a sense of profound release, like a long-held breath finally exhaled. The chamber responded. No. All the transformed memory orbs around them flared with a gentle, harmonious light, joining in a silent chorus with Elara's song. The walls of obsidian shimmered, no longer reflecting emptiness, but the soft, warm glow of 1,000 tiny stars. The profound silence that had once filled the chamber now held a delicate, intricate melody, a weaving of all the individual echoes of remembrance, now harmonized into a single, flowing stream. The grand tear, the chamber's heart, didn't break or shatter. Instead, it dissolved, slowly, beautifully, into a shimmering mist of starlight that rose towards the ceiling, coalescing into a single, radiant sphere of pure, gentle light. This was not the light of the sun, nor the moon, but something far older, far deeper, the restored heart of the world's song, pulsing with quiet power. Elara felt herself sway, utterly drained, yet filled with an indescribable peace. The starlight weave, though diminished, still pulsed gently within her, now an integral part of her very being. The oppressive silence was gone, replaced by a vibrant, living hum that resonated through the entire chamber, and she knew, through the very foundations of the earth. She slowly rose, looking around the transformed chamber. It was no longer a place of sorrow, but a sanctuary of remembrance. The obsidian walls now gleamed with the soft inner light of countless memory orbs, each a testament to a grief acknowledged and transformed. The air was alive with a delicate ethereal music, a symphony of quiet hope and serene acceptance. The broken song was broken no more. It was mended, not into its original pristine form, for life's journey leaves marks, but into something deeper, richer, more wise. A song that embraced both sorrow and joy, loss and renewal. With a final gentle breath, Elara turned and walked towards the now softly glowing obsidian gates. They opened silently, inviting her back into the world. As she emerged, she found herself not in the cold, desolate tunnel she had descended, but in a place bathed in a gentle twilight glow. The air was fresh and sweet, carrying the scent of damp earth and blossoming night flowers. Above, the sky was a deep indigo, dotted with stars that seemed to twinkle with a newfound brilliance. And everywhere she heard it, the soft, pervasive hum that had filled the chamber, now radiating outwards, woven into the very fabric of the night. It wasn't a loud, triumphant chorus, but a subtle, pervasive harmony. The rustle of leaves in the trees seemed to whisper a gentle tune. The distant flow of a river carried a quiet melody. Even the silent falling of dew seemed to chime with a delicate note. The world was singing again, a soft, comforting lullaby of remembrance and hope. Elara looked up at the stars, her heart full. The journey into the depths had been long and arduous, a path into the heart of the world's sorrow. But she had emerged, not unscathed, but transformed, carrying within her the echo of the mended song. The starlight weave was no longer just a power she wielded. It was woven into her essence, a permanent beacon of gentle light and understanding. She knew her task was complete. The world's heart had been healed, its song restored, not to erase the past, but to embrace it with grace and quiet strength. The sorrow would always be a part of its story, but it would no longer be a silent, suffocating burden. Instead, it would be a deeper chord in the world's endless, evolving symphony, reminding all who listen that even in the deepest darkness, there is always a thread of starlight, waiting to be woven into a song of healing and peace. As Elara walked towards the distant, shimmering line of the horizon, where the first hint of a new dawn was beginning to paint the sky with soft, hopeful hues, she carried with her the quiet understanding that the greatest strength lies not in avoiding pain, but in gently tending to it, allowing its echoes to become a part of a larger, more beautiful harmony. And as the world breathed its mended song around her, a profound peace settled over all things, a promise of gentle dreams and brighter tomorrows. The story of the broken song had found its quiet, harmonious end, and the world slept, cradled in its newfound lullaby.